It's me, Tracie Ibrahim. Nice to see you. And if you were expecting Dr. McGrath, guess what? He's doing something else today. So I am covering for him, and obviously am slightly better looking, so you're welcome. Just kidding. I love Dr. McGrath. So anyway, welcome to tonight's live Ask an Expert Q&A. You can send me questions in the chat and I will answer as many as I can in an hour. For those of us who have not met, I'm Tracie Ibrahim. I'm one of the therapists at NOCD, and I am also the Chief Compliance Officer of NOCD. So that's fun times for me. Also, if you are interested in getting help for your OCD, you can find us on all of the socials, and you can also schedule a free consultation with our care team, find out if you're get answers to your questions, find out what kinds of things we can offer for you. You can go to nocd.com and you can schedule that right from our website. So I encourage people to do that. We are covered by many insurance companies. So if you have questions about that, please schedule a call or go on over to read some of our blogs. We have lots of information, and you can also download our app for free and join our community. So, all right, let's get this started. Hi, this is a two-part question. All right, we're going to do two parts. One, hi, I've noticed that my social behavior links to the severity of my OCD. When I socialize successfully, suddenly my OCD is gone and I feel like I don't need to be fixed. But when the opposite happens, then the opposite effect takes place. Furthermore, I didn't notice this only when socializing, but in other activities as well, like understanding something difficult or solving a problem, etc. Well, Jack, I have news for you. That, to me, sounds like when you are not lost in your thoughts, when you are not paying such close attention to what your OCD is saying because you're socializing and you're getting into those conversations and you're doing whatever it is you're doing socially, then you're busy, you're distracted, you're engaged in life. And so then when you are not socializing, you go back to focusing on what it is you're thinking about, which for all of us who have OCD tends to be a little bit of something and some OCD thoughts. So that being said, it's the same thing, like you said, when you're doing other activities, you're trying to understand something difficult or solve a problem. That's a very good example because that is something that I have my members do sometimes when they're like, listen, I can't stop ruminating. I'm like, oh, well, you can actually, if you take your focus and you put it somewhere else. So I know that sounds really obvious and simple, but it's not that easy for people with OCD because we get so stuck when we're paying attention to what our OCD is saying. So your OCD never goes away. It lives in your brain, it lives in my brain, and it's always there. But when we are paying attention to something else, we tend to be able to focus on that. I will also say for some people like me, if I'm focusing on something else intensely, I might still have some OCD intrusions, whether they're thoughts or images or urges or feelings available. It's just that they're in the background, kind of like a background noise. I like to think of it like when you get in an elevator and it's playing music that is not your favorite music, but it's sort of in the background. You could also still be having a conversation with somebody in the elevator and you can hear the music, but it's like background noise. And so for some people, that's how you experience your OCD when you're focused on something else, is that it's in the background. So yeah, that's why that is happening, actually. Which means if you find that you're kind of stuck, spacing out, or really just OCD is kind of taking over and you're really focusing on what's OCD is saying or doing, do one of those other activities. Socialize, go solve a problem, go read a book, go do something that takes a good amount of focus. All right. Well, we have here Snickerdoodles, one of my favorite cookies. Why does OCD feel so real at times, going as far as making you believe things you wouldn't normally believe or even know isn't true? That is a great question. And that is something that I can explain, actually. So first, let me say, if OCD didn't feel real, we wouldn't care about it. We would be like everybody else without OCD who gets intrusive thoughts or intrusive images and they just don't care and it just sort of passes. They're like, yeah, whatever. It's a weird thought. But with people with OCD, what happens is when your OCD is triggered, it's like sending you a, oh my gosh, warning, you have to do something to solve this problem or to avoid harm or whatever it is that it's sending to you. It also releases chemicals and hormones. So I won't bore you with all the names of those things, but they are things like adrenaline and what makes it feel real is when you have a real emergency, a real problem to solve that's serious, those same chemicals and hormones come to your body as a survival mechanism. So if you hear a fire alarm go off and you're at school, you'll know to run. And you'll also have that extra adrenaline going to help you run faster than normal, to help you react faster than normal. Like, this feels serious. Oh no, run. And that's what happens with OCD. The same alarm system goes off, the same chemical dump. I call it a chemical shower because it's like getting showered in chemicals that you don't want. And it feels real. And the complicated part is that our brains cannot tell the difference between a real emergency chemical shower and an OCD, a false alarm chemical shower. So it reacts the same way, and then it feels real. So what I like to tell people that I work with is, listen, just because it feels real doesn't mean that it is real. It doesn't mean we have to react. And I'll give you an example. What if they're doing a fire drill at your school or your work? Well, if they say we're going to do a fire drill at 3 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock, the alarm goes off, you're not going to freak out, right? You're just going to go, yep, they said that was going to happen. It's not really a big deal, right? But yeah, unfortunately with OCD, it goes off, we get the chemical dump, and we have to remind ourselves this is not an emergency. So that's where response prevention comes in. So I'll give you a great example, something that happens to me very often in the middle of the night or shortly after I lay down at night. I live in the middle of the woods. It is very dark. We do not have street lights. If you look out my window at night, it looks like somebody put a black piece of paper on my window. You can see nothing. You cannot see 1 inch. And sometimes you can see the moon. But most of the time, it's just jet black. So I can't see what's going on. So OCD fills in all the blanks. Oh, there's a creepy person staring at you and you don't see them. Oh, there's a creepy person staring at you and they're going to come through your window. And it feels real and scary because OCD is sending me all these sort of alarms. You have to close your curtain. It's open 1/2 inch. Somebody's eyeball could be staring at you through that. And it feels like I should go close the curtain. It feels like I should, turn on a flashlight or run or hide, but I don't, because I'm like, this happens all the time. It always tells me someone's staring at me. I have to sit in that uncertainty, go, yeah, it's possible. But so far, every night I have laid here and nobody has come through the window. It's not impossible that somebody's going to come through the window. It's always possibility, but it hasn't happened and it's not happening right now. So I can sit with the discomfort of this chemical shower until it passes. And it always passes. But if I got up and I started shutting the curtains, I have a cat, so my cat walks all the time and slides the curtain open. And if I were being compulsive, I would always shut it, but I leave it open. And then that makes OCD like, oh no, now 2 eyeballs could be staring at you. And I'm like, yep. So, yeah. So response prevention is the answer to that. So when that happens, I'm like, yeah, maybe somebody's staring. I don't know. Maybe they're going to come through my window. If they do, I guess I'll figure it out at that time. All right. McMame. Is it normal to have to continue using ERP as new content pops up? Is this what recovery looks like? That is a great question. I can answer that as somebody who has been in recovery for a very long time. I started my ERP a little over 20 years ago, and it has kept me well this entire time. Nothing else, just that. That is all I use. And here's the situation with OCD. I think it helps to understand this. Different themes or content of OCD is not different OCD. OCD is just OCD, and it's in your brain. And when you get diagnosed with OCD, we just write down that you have OCD. There's no like, you have this special kind of OCD that involves harm. You have a different kind of OCD on Tuesday that involves contamination. So all OCD is just OCD. All the themes just describe how it is coming up for you right now. So the fun fact I have for you is if you are using ERP, let's just say on your contamination OCD, it is already helping with all of the other themes that are coming up because, again, it's just the same OCD in your brain. So do you need to continue using ERP as new content pops up? The question is it distressing to you? Because for me, I have a lot of themes of OCD all the time. And every once in a while, a new one will sort of pop up. And I'm just like, okay, what-ifs. And I don't do anything about it. So as long as you're not compulsing, you're doing the RP, or as Dr. McGrath likes to call it, response prevention is the secret sauce. He calls it secret sauce. But as long as you're not compulsing, you're doing response prevention. That's the majority of how you solve OCD anyway. So do you have to? No, you don't have to. Is it a good idea? Yes, especially if it's bothering you, for instance. So like I never had checking OCD before. I never had a checking theme, but I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, it just started like, you should check this. Oh my gosh, did you lock that? And it felt urgent. It felt like I needed to go check, but I'm well aware that while that is not my usual themes, I'm not going to start compulsing to that. So I just do the response prevention and I don't go check that. I'm like, yeah, maybe I left it unlocked. Everyone's going to die. Okay, that's possible. So as long as you're doing response prevention, that's the important part. On the other hand, when we talk about like, what does recovery look like? Recovery is a journey. It is not a destination. You don't arrive and then you're like, that's it, solved, because OCD is not curable. However, OCD becomes more and more manageable the more you practice your ERP, especially the RP, which means not compulsing. So recovery looks like a journey down a road. And in the beginning, it's more bumpy. And maybe occasionally early on or in the middle of your journey, maybe you're going to have a flare up. So I just call that more bumps in the road. Eventually, it gets to be a whole lot easier. So I've just been doing ERP so long that I don't do ERP all the time or anything like that. I do a lot more non-engagement responses, which falls under the response prevention. So it's like, oh, you're gonna kill somebody. I just don't respond. I'm just like, I've heard that enough times. So I'm not actively constantly like, oh, now I have to do an exposure on harm. I did all those up front. I still occasionally will do an exposure. Just I call it like haunting my themes before they haunt me. So even though I have very well controlled OCD in terms of I'm not compulsing most of the time, I don't get fooled by it most of the time. Occasionally, I still like to do something just to sort of help keep it a little bit quieter. And I was talking with Kimberly Quinlan about this recently, and she, it turns out, does a similar thing, and she calls it her insurance policy. It's like, even though this theme isn't bothering me right now, I'm going to occasionally do an exposure on it just to ensure that it understands that it's not going to control me like I'm in control. So recovery really looks different for different people, but some people, their OCD just gets really, really quiet and bothers them once in a while. Some people are like, wow, I feel like I didn't have any intrusive thoughts for a bit. And I'm like, cool. My recovery looks like my OCD is always in the background. I call my OCD my theme song. Call it my background noise, but it's not my theme song. My theme song is my values and whatever I'm doing in the moment. And my background noise multiple times per hour is some OCD stuff. I'm just not paying attention to it. And the more ERP that you do, especially cutting back those compulsions, believe it or not, the less it's going to bother you when you get triggered. So, if normally you're like 10 out of 10 freaked out when your OCD hits, maybe you're going to be like 1 or 2 out of 10. You're like, whatevs, man. And that's what recovery looks like. Looks like you're going to get, you're just going to have a much more manageable time. You're not going to feel freaked out. I never feel freaked out. I have suicidal OCD, homicidal OCD. I have just right. I have really contamination. We could go on for days, but we won't. And for me, it just looks like I just walk through my day and something's like, oh, that's not just right. And it's like, okay, I just keep going. It's not a big deal to me. And it's like, yes, it's just background noise. And I have very noisy OCD. So, all right. How did you learn to deal with your mental health on your own after getting mistreated? So, you've had some therapists who have argued against your relationship values because they have their own personal ideas about that, which made you stop sharing. So, I was mistreated, for those people who don't know, but I was mistreated with my OCD. I've had it since I was 4. I got hospitalized when I was 10 because some people didn't understand what OCD was. And I spent about 10 years, the better part of 10 years, in and out of 29 hospitals and placements because people didn't know I had OCD and they kept thinking it was something else. And so what did I do about that? One day, as an adult, I actually Googled. I know we keep saying don't Google, but luckily I did that day. I looked it up and I was like, what is the best treatment for OCD? And I found out ERP was the gold standard. So I went to an ERP therapist. I was a therapist and I learned about ERP and then I started doing it. So that's what I did. I will say this. Sometimes therapists that you have are a great fit for you. And sometimes a different type of therapist is good for you. So if you ever feel like your therapist is not a good fit for you, no matter who you are or where you are, you can always request a different therapist. So some people think like, oh wow, I want to work with Tracie. Great. And some people are like, no, nope, I don't think that we're a good fit. I don't like her style, or I don't like her approach, and that's okay. So if you ever feel like you have a therapist who's not aligning with your values or not understanding what you are talking about, or you feel like you can't share certain things, or there's not a safe space for you, just get a different therapist. That's what I would say. All right. Here we go. Croft, how can I teach my teenager ERP and ERP skills at home? How can I work their specific fears into a therapy? Well, Croft, it is not recommended, even if you are a therapist, that you do therapy for your own kids or family for a number of reasons. So even as an ERP therapist of many, many years, I don't treat my family members who have OCD. I send them to get treatment because for me, well, again, there's a bunch of reasons why you can't, right? In terms of, how can you sort of teach them some ERP skills at home? I think that you can certainly teach that, hey, whatever compulsions you're doing and whatever obsessions you're having, they're not really based in reality. And so, and these aren't helping you. So, you know what? Maybe we could work on reducing those compulsions at the very least. A lot of times what we do for families, not a lot of times, always what we do for families with parents, with loved ones who live with people with OCD, or even people's roommates, is we teach the parents and the loved ones how not to feed OCD and make it worse by providing accommodations. That is something we do a lot of that work at NOCD when we're working with like a teenager or somebody who has a partner at home. And so what I would do is start with yourself. Think about ways that you are actually helping this person's, your teenager's OCD be worse. So if, for instance, I'm just going to make this up because I don't know what it is, but let's just say it was like a checking compulsion and you're like, you know what? You don't have to check the door 18 times. I'm going to check it for you and let you know it's locked. That's performing a compulsion for somebody. The other sort of things that make OCD worse that are accommodations is providing reassurance. So if your kid is coming to you and like, do you think that I'm going to do this? Do you think that this is true? Do you think, am I okay? Is this happening? And you want to keep providing reassurance that, no, that's not true. No, that's not going to happen. No, I know that's not true about you. Or no, you would never do that. That actually makes OCD worse. That's providing reassurance. So one of the most helpful things parents can do and partners can do for their loved ones who have OCD is to stop providing reassurance, stop doing things that actually try to convince this person, like, you're okay, this is not real. It actually makes it worse because the more reassurance you give, the more reassurance that person needs. And it ends up just, if you're compulsing for them, you're going to end up compulsing a whole lot more for them. It doesn't solve it. So one of the most strong things that you can do is actually to say, like, no, like, you know what? I'm not going to give you a special hand towel in the bathroom, or I'm not going to. If you say, I need you to say, I love you 8 times every night before I go to bed, I'm going to say, no, I'm going to say it once. Or if you come to me and you say, oh, do you think that I'm going to, I don't know, light my school on fire? You go, I don't know what you're going to do. Maybe not. So these are ways that you can actually help reduce people's OCD who you live with. We also have a lot of good skills and tips on our NOCD blogs. And we also on YouTube have a lot of different videos that you can watch. So those are some ideas for you. And I know it's really hard as a parent too. You're like, oh, but I love them. I don't want to see them suffer. But I have kids that have OCD too. And, you know, you just can't see that you're making a problem. Like if it was a spoonful of poison, you'd be like, I'm not going to give you this spoonful of poison. It's going to make you sick. But offering reassurance or doing compulsions for people or giving accommodations to people with OCD is like a spoonful of poison in terms of OCD because it makes it so much worse. All right. Love is 515. All right. I always have bad thoughts when buying things. I just bought something expensive and a thought came up that something bad will happen if I use the item. Thought with deep anxiety. Okay, so, you know, having well, first of all, let's just start with, there's no such thing as a bad thought. There are just thoughts. Half the problem with people with OCD is that we label them as bad. We label them as scary. We label them as dangerous. So if I have a thought, like I have a million times a day, you know, like you're going to kill yourself. It's not a bad thought. It's just a thought. I'm like, eh. So you having a thought when buying something and you're like, uh-oh, something bad's going to happen if you use it. Well, that's not a guarantee, right? That's kind of a threat, right? It's like an OCD threat. This is dangerous. Don't use it. Bad. I'm giving you thoughts. Well, something bad could happen if you use the item. Something good can happen if you use the item. And also nothing can happen if you use the item. That's true whether or not you're having a thought. So you could be having a thought about, I don't know, fuzzy, fluffy kittens and still have something bad happen when you are using the item. So this is something that we call thought action fusion. And a lot of people with OCD suffer with this. If I'm having a thought, doesn't it mean that this thing will come true that I'm worried about? And the answer is maybe. No, I'm kidding. The answer is no. So just because we have thoughts doesn't make actions. And if you've ever noticed, OCD only ever comes up with worst case scenarios. Never has it been like, hey, I just want you to know, if you use that item, you're going to win the lottery. Because if we had delightful thoughts all the time with OCD, we would be delighted and we wouldn't want treatment. We're like, this is the most amazing disorder. It just pumps me up all day with delightful thoughts and encouragement. So just remember about thought action fusion. Thoughts don't equal facts. Thoughts are not facts. Feelings are not facts. And if something bad happens when you use the item, that's called a coincidence. If something good happens when you use the item, that is also called a coincidence. So what I would say is stop labeling your thoughts as bad or good. They're just thoughts. Karen says, how do you deal with the what ifs? Well, it's a great question. I often tell people, if it starts with what if, most of the time that means it's OCD. What if? What if this happens? What if? There's a lot of what ifs. And because it's OCD, they're always worst case scenarios, right? It's never like, what if I walk down the stairs and find $100 bill? Like nobody has that thought. So what if I walk down the stairs and then I slip and then I break my neck? Or what if I'm walking down the stairs and someone's in front of me and I push them? You know, those are more likely to be thoughts that we have. What if? So I have a couple of things that I like to tell people to use with the what ifs. Two things. So one of the things is, and I encourage people to write this down because you're going to need a reminder next time your what ifs come up. The first thing is, I will deal with that if and when it happens. Because we can spend all of our lives, all of our waking moments worrying about what ifs, and there's no way that those are all going to come true. So we're just wasting the current moment worrying about things that might happen, but we have no idea if they're going to happen. So if we're just like, what if, whatever, like, what if my house burns down tonight? Okay, so what if it does? Then it will. So what if, because I worry about my house burning down tonight, I pack all of my furniture and I put it outside? I mean, that's going to not make any sense. And then if my house doesn't light fire tonight, then it's like, why did I waste my whole night moving all my furniture outside? So if my house catches fire tonight, I will grab my people and my kitty and we will run outside. I'll deal with it if and when it happens. That's number one. My number two thing is a question and a direction all built into one. I also recommend people write this down. And if I have ever treated you in your life, you know this one already. Sometimes I have people write it down and put it on their wall as a reminder. Okay. The first thing you ask yourself when these types or any type of uncertainty thoughts come up, like, what if, oh my gosh, say, is this happening right now in this moment? If not, move on and do a value-based activity instead. So really that's based in mindfulness, and it is very good response prevention. If it's not happening in this moment, then you need to put your effort somewhere else. And especially imagine if we had to focus on every what if. OCD typically only has us focusing on just a few what ifs, the ones that OCD decided were important. But I'm like, have you considered all the options? Like, what if my house burns on fire? That's possible. What if a meteor crashes into my house? Possible. What if a plane crashes into my house? Possible. What if I don't know, die in my sleep? Possible. What if, right? Like, can I worry about every single what if? What if, I don't know, so many what ifs. Are we going to what if every possibility? Like, nobody has enough time in their day. So very interesting that OCD makes us focus on only certain what if worst case scenarios. So if you're going to be fair and worry about a couple of what ifs, you might as well do them all. And you might as well include good ones in there. What if I'm a genius? What if I never do laundry again? What if, what if I have the best day ever tomorrow? Those are all possible. So hope those were helpful hints to you. Oh, look at you. Can I just say thank you? I am also your fan. All right. Dun, 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 dun. Nanami. How to stop doubting and start believing in yourself. I love this one. Exactly the same way as what I just said before for part one. How do you stop doubting? OCD is the doubting disorder. That is the other name for it. And that is because it will always have intrusive doubts. It will never stop with the intrusive doubts. It's not possible for OCD to not have intrusive doubt. That it just wouldn't be OCD. So the best thing that you can do when you're learning to do response prevention is to sit with maybe. Well, am I a bad person? Could be. Okay. Am I a pedophile? Maybe. Huh. Interesting. But I can't live with that. Okay. Did you do something? Were you molesting people and you forgot? No. But what if I do? Like, deal with that if and when it happens, right? So in terms of how can you stop doubting, you can't stop OCD's doubt, but you can stop getting sucked into the doubt and believe in yourself that you are going to be able to handle whatever this thing is if and when it happens. So Like for me, I have harm OCD, like I mentioned. It's like, oh, it's a constant. You're going to snap your kitty's neck. Well, like, okay. You know what? I really like my kitty. Man, I don't want to snap her neck. I know that. It feels like I do. I have intrusive thoughts and images and urges and feelings. And my kitty every night likes to curl up with me and she rolls on her back. And when I'm petting her, she just like puts her head up and she's just like, here's my throat and my neck. And of course, OCD's like, now's your time. Now's the time. I know that I'm not going to snap my cat's neck. Why? I'm not a cat neck snapper, mostly. I also like my cat. So I can sit with the doubt that OCD brings, knowing that I haven't snapped her neck yet. So, I mean, sure, I guess. It's not that I can't. It's that I've chosen not to, even though I have the intrusive doubt in the background. I'm just like, yeah, okay, anything's possible, bro. But like, yeah, I don't think so. I have a very cute kitty. So when you start trusting yourself, yeah, that's half the battle. But waiting for doubt to go away, it's not going to happen. But practicing not getting sucked into the doubt, that could happen. So, let's see. Also, if anybody would like to get treatment, gold standard treatment for OCD, which is exposure response prevention, you can come to NOCD. You can go to NOCD.com. You can set up a call for free and find out more about our services and our insurance coverage and our payment plans. And you can follow us on the socials and you can read our blogs. You can join our community for free by downloading the app, which is free. And, OCD is an isolating disorder. We don't want people to feel alone. Oh, I like this one. This is going to be a good uncertainty question. How much treatment on a scale of 0 to 100 is medication? And how much from ERP would you guess? The answer is it's different for everybody. That is the real factual 100% certain answer. How do I know this? Some people are helped by OCD treatment and medication. Some people, like me, I'm medication resistant. Doesn't work for me. I use 100% ERP. I can tell you what research studies have shown. Research studies, they said for people who are responsive to medication, if you were to say just medication or just ERP wins. If medication works for you, medication and ERP wins. So that's the answer. And if you're me and medication doesn't work for you, it's 100% ERP. All righty then. Sometimes we can be 100% certain that something is 100% uncertain. Stephanie, I notice I worry a lot about relapse, which in turn causes anxiety. One of my main fears is falling back into a dark state of relapse. Any advice? Yes. Remember what I said about I will worry about this if and when it happens? That. Remember what I said about is this happening right now? In other words, am I going through a relapse and am I in a dark state right now? No? All right, move on. Do a values-based activity instead. So the reason for that is, number one, there's no such thing really as a relapse. I don't like to call anybody in relapse. Relapse is like you forgot everything you ever knew about treatment and you just sort of stop doing everything and you just full-blown compulse all day, every day. Most people don't do that. And if you're constantly not in a relapse, but worrying about a relapse, you're ruining all your good days, right? You're ruining all these days that are going perfectly fine. So if you're going to worry about relapse, why don't you worry about every possible bad thing that's ever happened? It's like, you know what? It's not happening right now. So the first thing that you can do is if it's like, oh my gosh, what if you relapse? You can go, yeah, I'll worry about it if and when it happens. One way that you can also not fall into a relapse is by doing response prevention and making sure that you are doing your exposures and making sure that mostly that you're not compulsing. That is how to avoid a relapse. Sometimes we get flares. That's different than a relapse. Flares is just like, for whatever reason, big life changes, changing jobs, changing work. Changing schools, changing whatever. Maybe you're getting married. So many different things. You're moving. You can expect OCD to be a little bit louder. So then be like, that's about to get loud. I'm going to pay close attention and do really good at not compulsing. So that is my advice. I have never fallen back into a dark state ever, actually. So yeah, because now, are there difficult things sometimes? Sure. But never have I been like, today's the day I believe everything OCD is saying. Like, I don't have time for that. Okay. What do we got here? Oh, goodness. Yes, we are. See that? Soul people here. My main theme is fear of death, especially for pets and loved ones. What are some strategies for dealing with the anticipatory grief? It feels like I'm always mourning someone who is still alive. I'm going to remind you, I'll deal with it if and when it happens. But I'm actually not afraid of death, but I deeply used to suffer with the, oh my gosh, what if my pets die? What if people I love die? I'm not going to be able to handle that. And the truth is, everybody dies eventually, and all your pets and all the people you know. And you never know, like, what if you died before your pet and you are wasting your time, worrying about how you're going to feel when your pet's gone? What if you go first? So it's really the opposite of being mindful and being present in your moment. Like, if you're going to mourn the loss of all these people and pets while they're alive, you're kind of wasting time, aren't you? You could be spending a delightful amount of time with these people and pets, enjoying them. So a good example is like I have a lot of pets. Most of my pets are chickens. I have 12 chickens. I used to have 15 chickens. So you know what that means? 3 died. I wasn't worrying about what will happen when they die, but occasionally I would get the thoughts like, your chickens are going to die at some point and it's going to be really sad for you. And it is sad when it happens, but while they're alive, I'm out there enjoying them, holding them, petting them. Like, I'm a weird chicken person. And sometimes I still get a little bit haunted. Like, I get haunted about, like, I don't think you're going to be able to deal with it when your cat dies. You know what? My cat's alive, so I'm going to enjoy the cat right now, even though I have the intrusive thoughts and like feelings like, oh, it's going to be so sad, and all the yucky thoughts that can come with it. We're like, oh, and like, what if you find the body and this, and like, that's just normal OCD stuff. And you're like, you know what? It's not happening right now. So I'm just going to go pet my cat and enjoy my cat. The closest person to me in my life was my grandmother. And I always was like, you will not be able to live a day without your grandmother. I really believed that. And then she died. And yeah, it was very distressing. I cried a lot. It was awful. I thought I was going to lose it. And I went through grief, and it's been like 11 or 12 years now. And I still feel sad about it, but I'm not like freaking out terribly sad like I was originally. I've gone through the grief process, but I'm really grateful that while she was alive, even though I would have thoughts about that I just made the best of my time with her while she was still here. Okay. About to get free exposures. You must go to my support groups. NOCD offers free support groups for people who are in therapy with us. That is a real story. I run 2 groups that are on taboo themes because I'm known as Taboo Tracie. Fun fact, Dr. McGrath named me Taboo Tracie, so that's why it's my Instagram. I was trying to come up with a name, and I was like, he calls me Taboo Tracie. What a good name. Danny. Hi, Tracie. What should I do when OCD is feeling super real and that worst case scenario is going to happen? I would go with do something else other than plan for the worst case scenario. Do you know how many times OCD tells you that the worst case scenario is going to happen? And how often does it really happen, right? OCD has been telling me I'm going to kill myself since I was 10. Fun fact, I'm not 10 anymore. It's been telling me that for decades. It's possible, right? But it's not happening just because it's saying it. So it feels real. Sometimes I get intrusive images, intrusive urges, like you're going to drive that knife through your neck, or you're going to go do this, you're going to jump off a building. You know what? Feels real, but if OCD didn't feel real, wouldn't be OCD. So I just let it sit there in the background and I say, I'll deal with it if and when it happens. Oh my gosh, I'm cracking up because you will not believe this. I always, for those of you who don't know, I always have a giant murderous knife here. But today, a realtor came to take pictures because I'm going to sell my house. And guess what? I had to move the murder knife because it seemed like a bad thing to have in a picture when you're trying to sell your house. Like, oh, what a lovely computer area and murderous knife. So I don't have it. This is probably the only time you will ever catch me in my whole life. I forgot to put it back when he left. So I will get that. And next time I will show it to you. And why? People are like, why does she have a murder knife? I call it the murder knife. It could be a suicide knife. It could just be a knife to chop vegetables. It's just one of my built-in exposures. A knife sits there all the time, except right now. All right. Dance in the rain. I've done that before. What is the best way to do ERP by yourself if you can't get access to an OCD therapist? What should you do? Any tips? Number one, yes. There's lots of valid ERP resources out there. Of course, if you can access a therapist, it's always easier and better to do that. If you cannot, then, go on valid sites that talk about it. NOCD has so much information on our sites about it. Kimberly Quinlan has ERP school. It's like, I'm not going to quote it because I don't even know what price it is, but it's pretty cheap. And it's sort of a walkthrough for people who can't access therapy. So you could go to Kimberly Quinlan's website. But yeah, those are good. Those are good choices. Is any substance use safe with OCD? That's a very vague question that I may or may not be able to answer. Some substances can make it worse. Marijuana can make it worse. Alcohol can make it worse. Also, in general, I guess, I don't know. I don't recommend most substances because it seems like they're a problem, like I'm like, heroin, that's the choice drug to use with, I'm joking. I don't really recommend using any substances in general when you have OCD because then a lot of people will be like, oh no, what if when I was drunk, I did X, Y, and Z? And then you end up with real event, false memory. But are they unsafe particularly? I don't know because I don't really know what substances you're doing. But in general, safe substances are substances that are approved by the FDA, I guess is the best way I could answer that question. The safest substance with OCD is something delicious, like fruit. All right. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, this is a good one. Brett, how can I know when I'm doing too many exposures and therefore stressing myself out too much? I will start with, it tends to be meta OCD when we're like, am I doing too many exposures? Is this too stressful? So there's not really such thing as too many or too few exposures. Actually, that's not true. There's no such thing as too many exposures. There's really just too few. If you're not doing enough to maintain getting well. But when you say kind of stressing yourself out, exposures certainly increase your distress initially, but the whole point of doing them and then not compulsing is to habituate to those fears so that over time you could do that same exposure and it won't bother you. So, a good example is like the knife that I usually have sitting here. It sat there for so long as an exposure that I just don't care. Like I could hold it up. I could be like, yay, like it doesn't bother me anymore. So I would say that there's no wrong amount to do. There's just don't do too few. Quentin. Hello, Quentin. How do we avoid OCD cults? Well, that is a great question. Stick with ERP. It is the gold standard treatment for OCD. Don't follow weird things that say that they treat OCD really fast, or, oh, like drink celery juice, or come to my weekend workshop. It's super expensive and I'll solve your OCD. That's BS. And don't believe everything that says that it's evidence-based, because just because people say something's evidence-based doesn't make it evidence-based. In real life, evidence-based, just so you know, doesn't mean somebody did research on it. Nope. Evidence-based means a bunch of people did research on it. A bunch of people repeated that same research exactly over and over and over time, over years, across populations, in different situations, different ages, different cultures, everything going on and on and on. And then once that's happened for a very long time, somebody comes along and they meta-analyze, it's called. They look at all this data and they meta-analyze it. So there are a lot of things out there where people are like, this is evidence-based, and it's not. So sometimes people are like, this is peer reviewed. That just means somebody read it. That's all it means. Doesn't make it useful. All right. I'm going to speed talk through the next few. Chase the snake lover. I also love snakes. I used to have snakes. I used to have pythons, ball pythons. My 11-year-old son is terrified of throwing up. It runs his life and he has panic attacks every day. How common is emetophobia, and is it possible to outgrow it? Emetophobia is common. I can't quote you the exact percentage, but you know, some people outgrow it, but most people end up getting treated for it. We do treat emetophobia, but you know, really it's something, it's a specific phobia. It's something you can treat with ERP. You have to expose yourself slowly to those possibilities, stop avoiding things. I recently treated someone for emetophobia. They had stopped eating things that were chunky because they were like, I don't want to vomit chunky stuff. So they were eating everything that was smooth. So over time, we slowly but surely worked our way up. Like, okay, well, what if you just chew this little tiny bit of something and we'll see what happens. But really, by helping to not feed into it. So if they're like, I can't eat these things, only buy me this very specific stuff, those are the things you want to stay away from, because then somebody with emetophobia's world gets really small. All right. What are the best meds for OCD? I recommend that you go to the IOCDF, or International OCD Foundation website. This is my quick search that you can do on Google. IOCDF meds. Enter. And a list will come up and it will show you the evidence-based medications for that and what doses. So, all right. Oh, goodness. I love this. How do you stop ruminating when I'm a professional ruminator? Oh, love that. Do you get paid? Just kidding. I can do it while having a conversation, working at school, taking tests, driving, singing, playing with my daughter. I'm a pro. So there's like active rumination, and there's kind of like a passive rumination, so I'm going to call it. Like, don't Google those terms because I don't think that those are exact terms, but if you space out, you're deeply in rumination, right? But if you're having a conversation and somewhere in the background there's stuff going around, that's going to be a little bit more background noise. But kind of like our first question came up, it's like if you do something intensely with your focus that really takes sort of problem solving and whatnot, those are things that tend to help your focus get away from the rumination. So if I'm thinking about like, oh, what if I'm going to, I don't know, whatever, like stab somebody at, the restaurant with my steak knife or something. If I get into a very deep conversation with somebody about something, I'm like, oh, and what is that on your pizza? And how do you like that? And interesting. And what is the square root of 97854? And let me solve that right now. I'm going to do mental math. It's going to be a lot quieter and it's going to be more in the background. Well, it's heard about ERP, but never tried it. I'll tell you what, I suffered for over 30 years because I had never heard of it either. So, yeah, really, really, really recommend that. We talk a lot about it on our website. We talk a lot about it in our posts that we make. It's all over our socials. Yeah. I highly recommend it. It's the gold standard treatment for over 60 years. I spend the rest of my life, I will be screaming from the rooftops to do it. All right. We have 3 minutes. How many questions can I answer in 3 minutes? Kyle, in my OCD recovery, something I still struggle with is information gathering. I like to learn, but when I was at my worst, I spent hours researching mental health, looking for the perfect answer. Yes. Well, I have news for you. I call that, if you can be like digital hoarding, if you're like saving resources, searching for the perfect answer, I will stop you right there for mental health. If it is your OCD, the perfect answer is exposure response prevention. You will find it on the internet, and you will find that you can get it here at NOCD. So there's that. Yeah, researching online. You have to remember that there's a lot of crazy stuff online that says this isn't crazy. This is research, and it's not real. So stop searching. How do you conquer social anxiety with OCD? Recently, it's been hard to step out of my house without thinking something bad will happen. Well, you could step out of your house and something good or bad could happen, or nothing could happen. That's true every day. So we actually treat social anxiety, you won't believe it, with exposure response prevention. So when we treat social anxiety, I have people slowly start to go out, stand on your front porch, just be like, maybe something bad will happen, maybe it won't, I don't know. But you know what definitely is bad? Isolating. People with OCD are so scared of everything that they tend to isolate. And there's nothing worse for your mental health than isolation. So slowly but surely getting out and going around people. Ellen, how can I deal with a fear of death and the unknown? Facts. Everybody dies. Facts. Most things are unknown. Do you know what's going to happen in 5 years? Do you know how much your rent's going to be at your apartment? Do you know the day that is your last day? Do you know what time is going to be your last time that you eat pizza? I mean, most things are unknown. How you deal with it is just accept the facts that most things are unknown and you don't get to know everything all the time. It's just a fact, right? It's a fact. Most things are facts. So, all right. I know we're at time, but I'm going to answer one thing right now. Can OCD pick up on anything? Yes, Christina, OCD can pick up on anything, will pick up on anything, and 100% will attack only the things you care about. That is a fact. it's almost like reassuring to me when OCD attacks something, because that means I care about it. OCD only attacks things we care about. So if it's something you're worried about because OCD is like, something bad's going to happen to that person, or you're going to do something bad to that person, or, you're going to whatever. The fact is you care about that. That's why OCD is saying that, because like I used to have a really terrible boss at my last job, and OCD was never like, oh no, your boss might not show up today because she died. I would have been like, shh, I wish. Like, I don't know if I wish she died. She actually did die, by the way, so it's okay if I say that now. But, on the other hand, if it's like, oh, your daughter, you're going to harm your daughter and she's going to be dead. I know that's saying that because I care about my daughter. So just throwing that out there. I hope that this has been helpful to y'all. And like I said, head on over to our socials. Go to nocd.com, schedule a free call, find out what's going on, and hopefully we can help you out. I'm sure we can. We have millions of covered people on multiple insurance companies. So if nothing else, please join our free community, download our app for free, and I hope to see you in future episodes. Maybe Dr. McGrath will be here next Wednesday, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll wipe him out before then. I guess we'll find out. I'll let you know. All right, peace out, y'all. Have an excellent night or day, wherever you are.